Okay, you join me inside the cabin of the 2019 BMW M2 Competition. I'm sick, so I'm going to do my best not to make nasty noises with my mouth while I do this. This car is a quick follow-up to the standard M2 that was introduced in 2016. Changes are as follows. Visually, it's got a new grille, updated lower fascia with larger intakes and a sharper design. The wheels are 19-inch multi-spokes that you can have with a machined finish or painted black. The door mirrors are new. There's some black trim surround for the windows. And this car is painted in Hockenheim silver. That is one of two new colors. There's also sunburst orange, or some dawning glorious sunshine name that reminds me favorably of the 1 Series M from 2010. Inside, you have some new seats with blue or orange stitching. That is your preference. You've got some Alcantara trim on the seats and in the door inserts. Carbon fiber trim for the dashboard and digital gauges for the driver. That's about it for the styling stuff. Performance, that's a bigger deal. That's a bigger jump. Your butt and your foot are gonna thank you. Let's go drive this bad boy and see what we got. All right, real quick before we get into the performance minutia, let's talk about BMW's competition nomenclature, because typically competition is like a model variant. It's a more aggressive version of a standard M car. They improve the cooling, they give it a little more power, yada, yada, yada. It's a better track-capable vehicle. But the M2 Competition is a different story, because BMW doesn't sell this alongside the standard M2 anymore. It replaces the M2. The M2 is gone. You can't go buy it. It also isn't just a little change. They put a whole new engine in it. They took the motor out of the M3 and M4 and just sort of crammed it under the hood of this M2 Competition, giving it ridiculous amounts of power. BMW, of course, had to detune that 3-liter twin-turbo inline 6 a bit because, well, it can't upset the M hierarchy. The M2 can't make the same power as the M3, M4, so they lopped off 20 horsepower. 405, though, that's what you're left with, and that is a lot in a car that weighs 3,600 pounds and has a wheelbase this short. And the way that power is delivered is lovely. Peak torque comes on from in the low 2000s to the high 4000s, and then peak power takes over from there. Redline is 7,500 RPM, so you really do want to string this bad boy out. The noise is, it's a little distilled, and BMW does amplify it just a touch through the speakers in the car, which is a bummer, but it doesn't really change how you enjoy the vehicle as you're running it out with each downshift. You still want to get on it, you still want to have fun. The brakes are fantastic. You've got 15.7-inch rotors up front, 15.0 in the rear, 6-piston calipers up front, 4 in the rear, 4-piston in the rear. Plenty of stopping power. Of course, we'll put that truly to the test during the on-track portion, but I don't think you need carbon ceramics unless you're really, really worried about brake dust, and just get over that. The suspension is a fixed setup. I'm gonna go over this rumble set. Oh yeah. So you can feel things. You can definitely feel things, but it's not an awful ride. You could absolutely deal with this as a commuter on a daily basis. No problem. Body motions mid-corner are so tiny. The car just grips and holds on super well. It's riding on Michelin Pilot Sport tires. You can still option on Cup 2s if you plan on going to the track all the time. 245 section front, 265 rear. It's plenty. It matches the car perfectly. You can overwhelm the rear tires if you so choose, by just turning off the traction control system. I do that by setting up these M controls on the steering wheel. So I've got M1 set up to keep the traction control on, and M2 set up, just tap that button and it's off, and I can just slide around the next corner. I love this setup. I love the M buttons. They make a lot of sense, especially if you have the dual clutch as we have. It's a 7-speed unit, and you're reminded of the fact that it's not an automatic because it's not the smoothest thing in the world. At speed, it flips right through those gears. It does what it's supposed to do. Downshifts on command. It's perfect in that way. At low speeds though, it's a bit clunky. It doesn't want to just jump into the next gear, and when it does, it's a bit jarring. And it's $2,900 for this. Why wouldn't you just choose the 6-speed manual? Yes, it's slightly slower to 60 miles an hour. You're losing 0.2 of a second. It's 4.0 seconds with the dual clutch, 4.2 seconds with the 6-speed manual. But this is a driver's car. You should get a driver's gearbox. Get the 6-speed manual. And BMW knows how to make a manual transmission, so go that route. I like that you can hear the turbos doing their thing too. There's not a huge blow-off noise or anything like that, but when they're coming on boost, they make a nice noise. And then the exhaust takes over. Size of this car. It's the right size. You know, the 1 Series M was a little dorky because it was kind of short and tall, but this one, it's now the perfect size in my opinion. I stacked this one next to my E36 M3, and it's a little bigger, but all cars are a little bigger these days, but it's just the right size for a sport coupe. Inside, there's great space for the front 2 passengers, and there's even space for the rear passengers. I'm 6 feet tall, and I wedge myself back there, not really having any issues. Yeah, my head's touching the roof, but that shouldn't be a permanent transportation solution anyway for adults. Just the fact that you can fit them back there is a big win. And you've got a reasonable sized trunk too. That's the street performance, but let's kick this on over to the Thermal Club in Palm Springs to see how the M2 Competition does on track.
I'm gonna cut the track, follow me, I'm gonna cut the track.
All right, we're cutting the track. So initial impressions is it's quick. With the same engine from that M4 and M3, the S55, the additional power, the additional torque, the way it comes on, yeah, it's quick. And I just hopped out of the M4 CS, so it's a nice little comparison of a smaller body, a smaller wheelbase of the M2 Competition compared to that M4, which is a little bit heavy. Not that heavy, but it's a little bit heavy, a little bit bigger of a car. This is tiny. This is a tiny car, holy cow. This is fun. it doesn't tell the story between the M2 and the M2 Competition because this engine is just so much better. It gets you the power exactly when you want it. The M2 there's a slight hesitation there. Oh man, I could lap this circuit all day in this car. This is so fun. So if you're considering the M2 Competition, you're probably also considering what you can get for $60-ish thousand. This one with the dual clutch and the executive package is like 64 grand, but you can have it for as little as 59,800. So what else can you get for that kind of money? Well, you can get a 718 Cayman, a base model, but that car is only making 300 horsepower. It's slower to 60 miles an hour. And yes, you do have the Porsche Prestige with you, and it is a mid-engine car, but this one is just, it's faster pretty much everywhere. You can also get yourself into an Audi TT RS, and that car with its all-wheel drive system is going to be faster than this. It's like 3.6 seconds to 60, but you can't get it with a manual at all, and you have no usable rear seats. I tried to fit in the back of that and it was laughable. The Cayman, you have no rear seats, period. So if it was my money on the line, I would absolutely go M2 Competition with the manual gearbox and as few options as possible. I love that BMW doesn't have a massive options list for this vehicle. There's like one extra package. You can have the dual clutch if you want it, and you can have a different paint color. That's about it. It's really minimal, it's bare bones. It's a driver's car. If you like to drive, and if you like 400 horsepower in a short wheelbase car, I do, then this is the one for you, man. I'm really, really happy with what BMW M has going on these days. And this is personally my favorite M car. All right, this is me trying to burn out in a dual clutch, rear drive, 400 horsepower M car.